regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all interested persons in the audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, will make the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. The Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and/or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to the City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or a site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to City Council. Resolutions that are adopted by the City Planning Commission become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. Planning Commission and the professional staff have reviewed each of these petitions upon their filing. Staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use depending on the outcome of the proceedings tonight. If our Secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh.
Present.
Mr. Bonjero.
Here.
Mr. Long.
Here.
Mr. Ventura.
His box appears to have disappeared, but he is here.
Okay, Caremagno's here. Chairman Wilshaw.
Is also here. And with us tonight, we also have Mark Toromina, we have Stephanie Reese, Deborah Walter, Scott Miller, all from our planning department. And for the folks in our audience, just to go over the format of the meeting, each of these items that you have on the agenda tonight, we'll start with reading out the agenda item. Then our planning director will give background information on the item. We'll ask the petitioner and the representatives to use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Afterward, to indicate that they're in the audience, we'll give them an opportunity to speak about their petition. And then, of course, anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak for or against each of these petitions will have an opportunity after the petitioner. And we'll again ask you to raise your hand using Zoom when the time is appropriate for that. So we'll prompt you along in the process and try to make this fairly straightforward and easy for everyone here tonight. With that, I believe we're going to start with the public hearing section of our agenda, item number 1.
And that is petition 2021-02-02-02, submitted by SPP Investors 2, LLC, requesting approval of all plans required by sections 11.03N3, 18.47, and 18.58 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 is amended in connection with the proposal to redevelop the site, including demolishing the existing restaurant, Romano's Macaroni Grill, constructing a full-service restaurant with drive-through facilities called the Shake Shack, and constructing a bank with drive-through facilities at 39,307 Mile Road, located on the northeast corner of 7 Mile Road and Haggerty Roads in the southwest quarter of Section 6.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll start with Mr. Toromina from our planning staff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request to redevelop the northeast corner parcel at 7 Mile and Haggerty Roads. The zoning of the property, as you can see on the map, is C2 general business. The site in question is 2.9 acres in area. It has 600 feet of frontage on 7 Mile Road and roughly 200 feet of frontage on Haggerty Road. This is the site of the former Romano's Macaroni Grill. The existing restaurant is 1 story in height and about 8,200 square feet in area, and it's located at the west end of the site, approximately 110 feet from the Haggerty Road right-of-way. Macaroni Grill was approved with maximum seating capacity of 280. Parking, as you can see from the survey, is located on the west, the south, and east sides of the building, with most of the parking on the east side extending all the way to the edge of the property. There is an open drain and contiguous wetland that exist along the north side of the property. The proposal seeks to demolish and remove the existing restaurant, and replace it with 2 new freestanding buildings, including a new full-service Shake Shack and a branch bank. The Shake Shack would be on the west part of the property in the same general location as the existing restaurant and is identified on the plans as proposed Parcel A. The bank would be on the east side in an area currently used for parking and is identified on the plan as proposed Parcel B. Both new buildings would have drive-through facilities. The proposed new Shake Shack would be 1 story in height with a gross floor area of 3,487 square feet. It would contain 74 interior seats, 70 exterior seats, for a combined total of 114. Outdoor seating is shown along the east and south sides of the building. The building would be set back about 123 feet from Haggerty and 81 feet from 7 Mile Road. The submitted floor plan shows the general layout of the restaurant, including the dining area, kitchen, and bathrooms. The dining area would be in the front part of the building. There are no details at this time regarding the arrangement of the seating area. The drive-through service facility is planned to be along the west side or the Haggerty side of the building. 2 traffic lanes serving the drive-up would commence on the east side of the building. There would be separate pre-order and order menu boards provided for each lane. All traffic around the east, north, and west sides of the building would be one-way, moving in a counterclockwise direction. With both lanes operating, any chance of bypassing a drive-through would not be available until after the cars have transitioned into a single lane, which is on the north side of the building. Once an order is complete, exiting vehicles would have the choice of turning right and exiting onto Haggerty Road, or turning left to a driveway that exits onto 7 Mile Road. The exterior finish would mostly consist of fluted concrete panel, which is the area shown in white, and cement fiber vertical siding, which is the darker shade color. A limited amount of brick is shown along the north and west sides of the building, would be painted with a mural as illustrated in this color rendering. Above the entrance and the outdoor patio, as well as the pickup window, the plans show being covered with structural canopies. So this would be the outdoor seating area along the east side of the building. That canopy would wrap around to the south elevation of the front entrance to the building, and then looking at the drive-through side, the west side of the building, there would be a separate canopy above the pickup window. At this time, the plan for the bank is only conceptual. Once a user is identified, detailed plans would need to be submitted for a formal review. The pad is shown having a setback of about 80 feet from the right-of-way of 7 Mile Road. Total building size is just under 3,400 square feet. The main entrance would be on the south side of the building facing 7 Mile. Drive-up window service is shown on the east side and includes a canopy that would extend 40 feet from the side of the building. The drive-through operations include 3 ATM lanes, and after completing the transaction, vehicles would loop around the back of the building, turn south, and at the northwest corner of the building, and then exit out onto 7 Mile Road. 2 existing driveways provide access, ingress, and egress to the site, and both of those would remain. There's one on Haggerty and there's one on 7 Mile Road. The drive approach on Haggerty would remain in its current configuration, but the one on 7 Mile would be retrofitted to allow for right in and right out operations only. Currently, both driveways are unrestricted in terms of their turning movements. As far as parking, site plan shows a total of 101 parking spaces. 72 spaces are shown on Parcel A and 29 spaces on Parcel B. Parking for full-service restaurants is based on the number of customer seats, both interior and exterior, as well as the number of employees, plus 2 additional spaces for the drive-up operation. The Shake Shack would require 72 parking spaces, and the bank would require 18 spaces. For both uses, the required parking is 90 spaces. So with over 100 spaces available, it does meet the parking requirement. A fully detailed landscape plan was submitted with the application, showing the plant materials throughout the site. Stormwater management would presumably be handled by means of an underground detention system located beneath the parking lot and drive aisles. Dumpster locations include one that would be along the north edge of the parking lot, about 75 feet east of the restaurant. A second dumpster is shown near the northwest corner of the bank building. The walls would all be 6 feet in height. Site lighting is shown at 25 feet in height. This would have to be lowered by 5 feet to a total height of 20 feet in order to comply with the city's outdoor lighting policy. We have not reviewed the petition in terms of signage. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence on this item.
Yes, please.
First is a letter dated February 5th from our engineering division, and it reads, in accordance with your request, the engineering division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed project at this time. The parcel is assigned the address of 39300 7 Mile Road. The existing building is currently serviced by public water main and sanitary sewer, as well as private storm sewer. The submitted drawings indicate revisions to the building services, but do not have detailed information to determine if there will be any impacts to the existing systems. Also, storm detention is not addressed in the drawings, but the developer will need to meet the Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance requirements. Should the development move forward, detailed engineering drawings will need to be submitted to this department for permitting. The submitted drawings indicate that the property is to be split into parcels, which will require the recording of easements across the easterly parcel to ensure utility services remain uninterrupted. The existing sanitary service will need to be cleaned and inspected and may need to be upgraded to a publicly owned system should the property be split. It should be noted that the developer will be required to obtain a Wayne County permit for any work that should occur within the 7 Mile Road or Haggerty Road rights-of-ways. That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Livonia Fire and Rescue dated February 10th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. Next is a letter from the Division of Police dated February 10th that reads, I have reviewed the plans in connection with the petitions. I have one concern in regard to the proposal. The 7 Mile and Haggerty area already has a very high traffic volume throughout the day. I believe moving this business at that location has a high potential to add to the traffic congestion and also increase the amount of vehicle crashes. That letter is signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. Next is a letter from our Department of Finance dated February 19th. It reads, I have reviewed the address connected with the above noted petition. The following amounts are due to the city of Livonia. False alarm delinquent charges in the amount of $2,852.50. That letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant, and I believe that a payment has been made. Next is a letter from the Office of Treasurer dated February 24th that reads, in accordance with your request, the Treasurer's Office has reviewed the name and address connected with the above noted petition. At this time, there are no taxes due. That letter is signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. And lastly, a letter from, two more letters. The next letter is dated February 8th from the Assessment Department that reads, the plan submitted by SPP Investors 2 LLC requesting the approval of plans to redevelop the site at 39300 7 Mile to demolish the existing restaurant and to construct a new restaurant and bank. We have no objections to this proposal other than to comment that if the new restaurant, Shake Shack, and the bank are going to be owned individually and want separate tax bills, a lot split will need to be initiated. That letter is signed by Kathy Sitterlit, residential appraiser. And lastly, a letter from the Inspection Department received today, March 9th, that reads, pursuant to your request, the above reference petition has been reviewed and the following is noted. Number one, the parking lot shall be repaired and restriped as necessary. Parking spaces shall be 10 feet wide by 20 feet deep and double striped. Signage has not been reviewed. A variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals would be required for any non-conforming signage. This department has no further objections to this petition, and that letter is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection, and that is the extent of the correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Do we have any questions of the planning director from any of the commissioners?
I do, real quick.
Ms. Smiley?
Are these pieces of property owned separately? Parcel A and parcel B?
No, this is a single parcel currently.
Okay, so then we don't really need a lot split, right?
At this time, no, it's not a prerequisite to review the site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Mr. Long?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tormina, how long has this site been vacant? How long has Macaroni Grill been gone?
I think it's going on a year when the restaurant closed, but maybe the petitioner knows precisely if that's of interest to you. But I think a little over a year.
I'll ask them as well. And in that year, this is the first thing that's come before us, first proposed reuse that's come before us, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other questions of our planning staff?
Chairman,
Mr. Ventura?
Mr. Tormina, did you receive, at least I'm under the impression you received some additional traffic information between our study session and tonight. Is that true?
That is true. And that information should be provided in your e-packet.
Any other questions, Mr. Ventura? Anyone else with any questions?
I do know he is experiencing some internet problems, so. Oh, he's back.
Mark, but I didn't hear any, so I'm sorry, I apologize.
Mr. Ventura, you broke up a little bit. Did you want to repeat that?
I'm sorry, and I don't know whether you can hear me again.
You broke up again, Mr. Ventura. What you might want to try to do is turn your video off and see if that helps your audio. I've seen that sort of improve the bandwidth a little bit if you go just audio only.
All right, video is off. How's the audio doing?
We hear you fine.
All right, okay. So Mark, did you hear my question?
You had asked whether or not new traffic information was received between the
Correct.
study and this meeting, and the answer was yes, and that should be available in your e-packet.
Okay, and I've not seen that, but can you tell us what the comparison, or can you summarize the report's conclusions for the traffic generated by a drive-through restaurant such as this one versus a sit-down restaurant like the Macaroni Grill?
I don't have the traffic analysis in front of me, and we do have the traffic engineer available on this call, but going from memory of after reading portions of that lengthy report, it was clear to me that the development as proposed will increase the amount of traffic to the site. How significant that is, I guess that could be measured in terms of percentage increase in trip generation. I believe the engineer can explain exactly what that is. In terms of changes, it was indicated that there will be restrictions on the turning movements onto 7 Mile Road. That was something that was recommended by Wayne County in the early discussions that the developers had with the county regarding this issue. There still has yet to be a decision on whether there would be restrictions on turning movements from the Haggerty approach. Those could be time sensitive, i.e., during certain times of the day, left-hand turns might be prohibited from that driveway. That's just in a very rough description. But again, the traffic engineer is here, and she'll be able to respond in detail to your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Mr. Chairman, after last week's study session, I reached out to Sergeant Shepanik to ask him questions about why he was so definitive about his objection to this petition. And he shared with me the Michigan State Police accident statistics at this intersection. And in the last full year of operation of Macaroni Grill, there were 60 accidents at this intersection, 10 of which were head-on collisions, a total of 24 of which were moving, where the cars were moving, and the balance were rear-end collisions. So this is a fairly dangerous and a very dangerous intersection already, and that's without a drive-through. And I'm sorry I didn't have time to share this data with the commission, but I have the report from Sergeant Shapanik, the state police report, and we'll be happy to share it both with my fellow commissioners and the petitioner. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ventura. That's good information to have, and I'm glad that you followed up with them on that. It is a little unusual when we hear the traffic division make this objection. It's not something that they do too often, so it's good that we followed up on that. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners for Mr. Tormina before we go to the petitioner? If not, our petitioner and the representatives are in the audience. We're going to ask that you click raise hand so that we can identify you. What I'll do is I'm going to give you the opportunity to unmute yourself. You don't have to do that immediately, but you can certainly do that when the time is appropriate if you wish to speak. But I will give each of you that opportunity. There's 4 right now. We have Mr. Williams, Mrs. Kroll, Mr. Erickson, and Ms. Palmadezzo. So good evening. I think Mr. Thompson as well. I believe, Mr. Williams, you're going to start for us.
Yep. Good evening, commission members. Appreciate you guys all taking the time this evening. So my name is Eric Williams. I work for Stonefield Engineering and Design. We are the civil engineers on this particular project. Our address is 607 Shelby Street, Suite 200, Detroit, Michigan. So we are here on behalf of the applicant, SPP Investors 2 LLC. And Mr. Erickson is here on their behalf. And additionally, we do have Julie Kroll with Fleiss and Vandenbrink, our traffic consultant, and Allison Palmadesso from the Shake Shack team. So we're hoping that we've got all the right people in front of you so we can, obviously respond to each and every question accordingly. So as Mark alluded to, we are seeking waiver use approval for the site located at 39300 7 Mile Road, probably more commonly known as the Macaroni Grill, located at the northeast corner of Haggerty and 7 Mile. So we have, we've worked with Mark and city staff, Dave Lear, obviously County Road Commission over the last few months to come up with a plan for this property. And it's been rather challenging due to the site dimensions. As Mark mentioned, it is extremely long and narrow. We obviously have a pretty vast expanse of frontage along 7 Mile Road. And then we're also tied to our existing access points in terms of location. This is further exacerbated by the open drain to the north. I think we had obviously discussed in the last meeting, but there is an existing retaining wall that's shown on the plan with the line with the X's through it. So this is an existing wall. And obviously as construction commences and we have demolition work occur and things of that nature, this is going to be closely looked at by our site contractors and structural engineers. So as Mark said, the site is zone C2 general business. The proposed uses are both waiver uses. And I think it was important for Mark to point out that at this point, the bank with drive-through facilities is conceptual. So, once Mr. Erickson and his team lock up a tenant, we'll be back in front of you for any tweaks to the site plan, obviously floor plans and detail elevations. So to walk everybody through the site, and then I don't want to belabor the matter because Mark obviously did a great job in describing what's going on here. But I think the big point is, when you look at this site today, it's obviously an extremely prominent corner within the city. And I think the year mark is correct in terms of when this site was closed. So I know Chip and his team have been working hard to find tenants, solidify deals, and obviously make this property viable again. So what we like about this plan is that we were able to keep the Shake Shack, or the proposed Shake Shack building, in almost the exact location of the Macaroni Grill, except for the fact that we're cutting the building square footage in half, essentially. So that building is more or less in the exact same location. And then by reducing the square footage, we were able to activate the southeast corner of the site, or the area just adjacent to Chippewa. So I think, in terms of what's out there today, you have a sea of asphalt along the east side, and we've been able to now, and I shouldn't say now because it's obviously conceptual, but based on the setbacks, the site circulation, the number of parking spaces, we've been able to activate the east side of that site. And Mark had questioned a few of the easement agreements. And so what SPP Investors is looking to do here is essentially split these two properties so they are two freestanding parcels, and they will enter into a reciprocal easement agreement, and that would allow for the function of shared utilities, shared access, and I'm sure there's a plethora of other agreements within that, but I think most importantly, the shared access to allow vehicles to go between the sites. So with that, I would like to pass it over to Julie so she can speak on the adjustments we've made to access, the conversations we've had with the county, and obviously walk the commission through her findings with the traffic impact study.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We'll go to Ms. Kroll. And as Mr. Williams already started out, though, we do ask that you start with your name and address for our record for our minutes. So Ms. Kroll, I believe you're up.
Sure. Yeah, this is Julie Kroll with Fleece and Vandenbrink. We're at 27725 Stansbury Boulevard, Suite 195 in Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Thank you.
Mark, I think I saw you had the traffic study on one of those tabs.
He does. He's going to pull it up for us.
Okay. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through just kind of how we did the traffic study. From when we started with this, we started with the baseline traffic that we used for most recently for the Beaumont property, which is, as you know, just to the east of here. And that study included a lot of background traffic. So we included the Chick-fil-A development that's just to the north of here, the St. Joe's Medical Office Building development, the Haggerty Center, which is just north of here, the Showstack Office Building, which is actually in Northville, and then, of course, the Beaumont Medical. And we also included the recommended improvements that were coming with the Beaumont, which included the addition of that traffic signal at CVS Fox Drive and the optimizing of the traffic signals along 7 Mile and Haggerty. So that was assumed as our baseline for evaluating the site. So then we took the trips generated by this development and added them on top to figure out what was going to be the traffic impact associated with this PUD. So if you can go scroll down to table E1, it's on page 6 of the, there you go. So this is where we look at the trip generation for the site. So you can see the trip generation from the Macaroni Grill. And then right below it, you'll see the trip generation associated with the Shake Shack operations. And so one thing I want to point out is you'll see there's a line item in there that says pass by trip. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the term pass by trips, and I'll briefly explain it for those who aren't familiar. But what pass by trips are people that are already on the road and they turn into a use and then continue on to their route home or wherever they may be going to. A good example is like on my way to work, I'll stop in and grab coffee at Starbucks, and I'll turn into Starbucks, get my coffee, and then turn right back out and keep going on my trip to wherever I'm headed in the morning. So this is very typical of commercial type uses. So there's the ITE trip generation manual provides pass by trip percentages for our use in calculations. So what you're seeing here is, for a turnover restaurant such as a Macaroni Grill, you're going to see less pass-by trips. People will actually leave their house with their family, go eat dinner at a Macaroni Grill, and then go back home. Whereas you're seeing with a Shake Shack or these fast casuals or fast food restaurants, you're going to see more people jump in to the drive-through or just run in and grab some food real quick and then head on home. So that's where we're seeing these reductions in. It's not actually new trips generated. These are people that are already on Haggerty Road or 7 Mile Road that are just diverting off their trip to run in and grab some food on their way home. So when we look at the actual new trips associated with the Macaroni Grill and then compare that with the new trips associated with the Shake Shack, you can see that the new trips generated by these developments are actually pretty comparable. And since most are not open they're not open in the morning for breakfast, we're really just looking at that ingress in the afternoon. So when I look at the comparison of the Macaroni Grill and the Shake Shack, I'm seeing 27 in on both and then 25 out, mostly because if you go to the Macaroni Grill, it takes you longer. You're going to spend potentially over an hour rather than the Shake Shack, which is you'll be in and out in less than an hour. So that's why the ingress and egress for PM for Shake Shack is almost identical, and it's not for a high turnover such as Macaroni Grill. But when I'm looking at the peak hour trip generation associated with the two, they're very comparable. And then we add the bank on top of that. And I have to say, the bank you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, because the banking that is evaluated in the trip generation manual is based on how people used to bank, and it hasn't quite caught up to how people now bank, which is much more on their phones and ATMs. This is more of people going to the bank and having an interaction with a teller, so you're seeing a higher trip generation, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. But we did evaluate it. We felt it was more conservative for this study to include the higher trip generation for the bank. So overall, what you're seeing in that bottom line is the overall net increase in trips associated with the development is what you see in that bottom line there. And that's what we're adding to the roadway network. In the end, it's 66 cars in the PM but in the grand scheme of how much traffic's going through the intersection of Haggerty and 7 Mile, 66 cars is actually a pretty low number, because a lot of that trip is on pass-by traffic. It's already on that road, and they're just diverting their trip to use these particular land uses. So then I wanted to talk a little bit about distribution. I think if you scroll down, Mark, on the next table E2, there's a distribution. So we have two different distributions. One is for new trips and one is for pass-by trips. So if we're looking at the number of pass-by trips, for example, we see, the majority of traffic in this area is heading westbound in the afternoon, and then heading north and south. So we're looking at, in the afternoon, about only 20% of the traffic that would be heading back to the east, with the remaining 80% of the traffic either going north or south or west off the site. And then new trips, we're looking at 70% of the traffic will either go north, south, or west, with only 30% going east. So then if I say, okay, well, if I've got 30% new trips that are going east, then I'm only talking about like 15 cars that we're looking at that would have to make some sort of decision about how to head back east during those PM peak hours. So it's actually a really relatively small number. And then to the question about site access and safety, so that was a big thing with our conversation with Wayne County, is they added those restrictions for the site access on 7 Mile because of the safety concerns that the officer brought up about crashes. So what we're trying to do with the right in, right out is not to hinder people from going back east. It's to prevent crashes associated with vehicles exiting, making a left-hand turn out of there and having those crashes. So what we're trying to do is reduce the crash potential associated with the proposed operations by adding that right in, right out on 7 Mile. And then during the PM peak hour, they would allow, restrict the egress left turns for the same reasons. But for the rest of the day, you know, we found that on Haggerty, we could still allow full movements there because we didn't have as many conflicts as we do during the PM peak hour, where, you know, we have the high volume of traffic through there. So the improvements that we recommended in coordination with Wayne County here were really to improve the safety and address that concern from the officer.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kroll, for that presentation. We'll see if there's anyone else on your team that wants to speak, or if not, we'll go to questions. I think there are some questions relative to traffic, so we'll give your team a full chance to present first, though. Mr. Williams, is there anyone else on your team to present?
Commissioner Wilshire, I believe Allison did want to give just a brief rundown on operations of Shake Shack and how customers can place orders and pick up orders. I think that's important in kind of the distribution of the business that they plan to see here.
Sounds good. Ms. Palmadesso, how are you? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you? This is Allison Palmadesso with Shake Shack. I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about our operations and kind of where we fall in the conversation of what they call dine-in versus drive-through and all these different uses. So Shake Shack really thinks of itself, you know, not only as fast casual, but we actually refer to ourselves as fine casual dining. And we really strive to make all of our restaurants a true community gathering place for the communities that we go into. We're really excited to be in the city of Livonia. And just to kind of talk through how we do, or how we will be doing drive-through, is that the drive-through would be dedicated only to people that are driving up and ordering on site. However, there's a lot of different ways that our guests can get their food. So we still plan to have a robust dine-in program. We have, you know, over 50 seats in our patio, over 60 seats within our restaurant, so people can still order there, dine in. Additionally, you can order to go at the restaurant. And then another thing I just wanted to highlight was that, you know, increasingly people are looking to digital channels to order food. And we purposely have those guests come into the Shack to pick up that food. So people ordering on our app ahead of time, or delivery partners like Uber Eats and Grubhub and all of that, they would also have to come within the Shack. So I'm just hoping that explaining that gives a little bit of peace of mind as it relates to the volume of cars we would see in the actual drive-through lane. So we definitely anticipate using that inner lane primarily and making that really clear so that cars can move freely throughout the site and try to alleviate some traffic concerns. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. And this is your first location that has a drive-through, correct?
Yes, we currently don't have other drive-throughs.
Okay, great. All right, and anyone else on your team that is looking to present before we go to questions?
Commissioner Wilshire, I think we are all set and happy to answer any questions and hear from anyone in the public.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Any questions for our petitioners from any of the commissioners?
Mr. Wilshire.
Mr. Ventura.
I guess, Mr. Williams, I'll direct this question to you, but if I'm directing it to the wrong person, I apologize. But I understand that you approached the owners of the property to the north to seek permission to exit from Macaroni Grill site onto the road that is contiguous with this property to the east. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And he he declined to grant that permission. Is that correct as well?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kroll, during our study session, when we talked about traffic coming from the east that would want to return to the east, you indicated that the solution was for customers to exit on northbound Haggerty and go up and enter the site to the north, travel east on the private road in that development, the road that goes north and south and exits on 7 Mile Road immediately adjacent to the site, the same road that the owner of that private road has declined to give you access to. That was your answer, am I right?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that a little bit, if I could. So there's multiple ways that vehicles can head back to the east. During the off-peak periods, vehicles will be able to exit onto Haggerty Road and turn to the left, and then turn another left to go on 7 Mile Road. During the off-peak periods, vehicles can exit on 7 Mile Road and turn right, and then turn left on to go south on Haggerty, and then come around on the public roadway through Chippewa from the south.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Ms. Kroll.
There are multiple ways that vehicles could exit the site and get back to the east. So they could use either of the two driveways, and then during those peak hours in the PM, they could either turn right and go to the north, or turn left and go to the south and turn around and come up Chippewa, either from the north or the south, knowing that the access to the north is a private roadway. However, the access to the south is a public roadway.
Okay, thank you. And I have to tell you that I shop at the Home Depot across the street from the site at least once a week. And the likelihood of anybody exiting this macaroni grill site and getting into the left turn lane to go south on Haggerty Road is going to be highly problematic. That intersection is backed up past the location of this exit almost all the time. That's going to create a very dangerous situation, but that's my opinion. But I've lived there for a long time and have been going to that store for years, so I've got a ton of experience there. I guess the other thing that puzzles me is that if you look at the population of Livonia and the 4 communities to the west, Livonia is 60% of the total population. Yet you're saying that westbound traffic is going to be 80% of the stops at this restaurant, and only 20% of the people are going to want to go back east. Somehow that doesn't square with just the number of people that are there to visit this restaurant. I don't understand how that can possibly work. There just aren't enough people to the west of the site to represent 80% of the traffic, unless everybody in Northville and Northville Township and Plymouth Township has a special affinity for Shake Shack. But failing that, the majority of the population is to the east of this site. And I don't know how they're only going to represent 20% of the trips. Can you elaborate on that at all, Ms. Cole?
Sure. So I'll clarify that. It was 20% of the pass-by trips in the PM were eastbound. So people heading eastbound to towards 275, with the majority of traffic actually going north and south on Haggerty Road. and the remaining 26% headed westbound. So it wasn't all going west. It was distributed both north and south on Haggerty, and in addition to westbound. So that during the peak hour. So we're seeing that during the peak hour, the majority of traffic is not headed eastbound. 80% of the traffic is headed westbound. I don't know, Mark, do you still have that table E2?
Yeah. All right, I understand what you're trying to say. So, and I guess I thank. Thank you, Mr. Wilshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Smiley?
Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to talk with Livonia PD or the state police about your assessment as it differs so much from theirs?
I think that question would be for Ms. Kroll.
I guess, Mark, can you repeat what the officer indicated in their letter?
Mark?
Mr. Chairman, with your permission,
Yes, Mr. Correspondence.
Thank you. It reads, I have reviewed the plans in connection with this petition. I have one concern in regard to the proposal. The 7 Mile and Haggerty area already has a very high traffic volume throughout the day. I believe moving this business at that location has a high potential to add to the traffic congestion and also increase the amount of vehicle crashes. That letter signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau, City of Livonia.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tormana. Ms. Kroll?
Based on that letter, I don't believe that he had an opportunity to review the data that was presented in the traffic study. It sounded like he was basing his information on his thought about traffic impacts. And no, I would say we have not had an opportunity to speak with the police about that regarding the traffic impacts here. But like I said, in regards to safety, we did work with Wayne County, who is the permitting agency, regarding their recommendations for site access and safety for this site.
Okay, thank you. Who is the neighbor to the north of them that they don't want to go into an agreement with them about letting them exit into their property? Who owns that?
Mr. Tormina, that's the AMC property, right?
Yeah, so that is the Pentagon Association. So it's a condominium association made up of, I don't know how many units or co-owners there are. There's 1, 2, 3, at least 4. So 3 restaurants as well as the AMC Theater and I believe the hotel. So 5 total make up the association.
And they don't want them to exit into their property. Is that right?
I'm going to refer that. I did not have any communications with the association or their management company regarding this proposal. As was indicated by Mr. Williams, they did reach out to them and they're unable to secure any type of agreement to get access to that adjacent roadway.
Okay, thank you. Were they also the ones that didn't want Beaumont to use their road?
It's the same road.
Yeah, it's the same road.
And yes, there was not aware that any agreement has been reached between Beaumont and the association for similar access, but from the opposite side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions from any of the commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bonjero?
I guess this is for Ms. Kroll. Like Pete, I'm in that Home Depot a lot, and I happened to be there on Saturday, and it was probably 3 o'clock, and Home Depot was crowding. I felt like, if I wasn't aggressive, I could have sat there for a long time trying to get back out on Haggerty Road. But in front of me was an elderly driver, and they were very apprehensive to make the move to get out there because Haggerty was lined up. Like Pete said, it was lined up. And there were some frustrated people behind me laying on the horn. And I was like, that's where I think trouble lies, because somebody's going to get, startled or whatever, and tend to want to get out just because everybody's on them to move. Does the traffic study take that into account? Do you know what I'm saying? Because if I didn't get aggressive, I would have sat there for a lot longer time. And it's packed over.
Ms.
On
Kroll?
Saturday.
So to make a right turn or a left turn onto?
Left. I was trying to go northbound on Haggerty.
Northbound.
Okay. Yeah. So during the PM peaks, when we're expecting the higher traffic volumes, the county has restricted left turning movement on Haggerty at the site access drive because of the reason you just described. It's a safety concern, and there's concerns about delays for egress left turns on that approach. So they have recommended to prohibit left turn lanes during the PM peak. But during the off-peak periods, there's less traffic that would be conflicting that would allow those movements to occur to make a left turn. At the 7 Mile access, they've fully restricted it to right in, right out, so no left turns will be permitted. And both of those were based on safety and operations.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions for our petitioners? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this petition? If so, please click raise hand and we'll recognize you and give you an opportunity to speak. I don't see anybody clicking the raise hand. Mr. Williams, I'll go back to you as our sort of main representative for the petitioner and see, is there anything else that you would like to add before we make our decision on this item?
I think we are all set. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now I will close the public hearing and go to our commission and say a motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura.
I'm going to offer a denying resolution that the request to redevelop the site, including demolishing existing restaurant, Romano's Macaroni Grill, constructing a full-service restaurant with drive-through facilities, Shake Shack, and constructing a bank with drive-through facilities at 307 Mile Road, is hereby denied for the following reasons. Number one, the petitioner has failed to affirmatively show that the proposed use complies with all the special and general waiver use standards and requirements as set forth in section 11.03 and 19.06 of the zoning ordinance number 543. Number two, that the proposed use and its location, intensity, site layout, and periods of operation are such that the use is incompatible and not in harmony with the surrounding uses in the area. Number three, that the proposed site layout and its relation to streets giving access to it, particularly with respect to vehicular turning movements on 7 Mile and Haggerty Roads, would be hazardous and inconvenient and would unduly conflict with the normal traffic flow and circulation patterns in the surrounding areas. Number 4, that the proposed use is contrary to the purposes, goals, and objectives of the zoning ordinance, which seek to ensure compatibility and appropriateness of uses, enhance property values, and create and promote a more favorable environment for the neighborhood and neighborhood use and enjoyment. Number 5, that the petitioner has failed to sufficiently demonstrate that the site has the capacity to accommodate the proposed use. And number 6, that the proposal fails to conclusively deal with all of the concerns deemed necessary for the safety and welfare of the city and its residents.
Okay, we have a denying motion offered by Mr. Ventura. Is there support on that motion?
Support.
We have a denying motion offered by Mr. Ventura, supported by Mr. Bonjero. Discussion is now appropriate for the motion. Any discussion from any commissioners? If there's no discussion, I'll go to the secretary to call the roll on the denying motion.
Mr. Ventura,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
No.
Mrs. McHugh. Mrs. McHugh.
No.
All right, we heard a no on that.
Okay. Mr. Long,
No.
Mr. Caremagno will say aye. Chair Wilshire, make the call.
No, you would do this to me. I'm going to vote no, and the motion does not pass. So that takes us back to opening the floor for another motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McHugh.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to redevelop the site, including demolishing the existing restaurant, Romano's Macaroni Grill. I apologize, I just lost my whole thing. Bear with me 1 second.
That's okay.
So what happens when you can't see, right? You go to grow, make it wider. Okay. Macaroni Grill constructing a full-service restaurant with drive-through facilities, Shake Shack, and constructing a bank with a drive-through facilities at 39300 7 Mile Road is hereby approved, subject to City Council approval and the following conditions. That the site plan identified as drawing C3 dated February 3rd, 2021, as revised, prepared by the Stonefield Engineering and Design, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to, except the construction of a building on Parcel B shall not occur until and unless a separate waiver use site plan is submitted for review by the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council. Number 2, that the landscape plan identified as drawing C8 dated February 3rd, 2021, as revised, prepared by Stonefield Engineering and Design, is hereby approved and that shall be adhered to. Number 3, that all disturbed lawn access shall be sodded in lieu of hydro seeding. Number 4, that underground sprinklers are allowed to be provided for all landscaped and sodded areas, and that all planted materials shall be installed to the satisfaction of the inspection department and thereafter permanently maintained in healthy condition. Number 5, that the exterior elevation plans for the restaurant identified as sheet number A201 and sheet number A202, both dated January 13th, 2021, as revised, prepared by ARIA Group, are hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number 6, that all rooftop mechanical equipment shall be concealed from public view on all sides by screening that shall be of a compatible character, material, and color to the other exterior materials on the building. Number 7, that the maximum customer seating count for the restaurant shall not exceed a total of 114 seats, including 74 interior seats for the restaurant and 70 outdoor patio seats. Number 8, that no advertising shall be permitted on any of the seating or table apparatus of the outdoor patio area. Number 9, that only one menu order board sign is allowed per stacking lane in accordance with the sign standards set forth in section 18.50H. Number 10, that the 3 walls of the trash dumpster areas be constructed of masonry that complement the design of the building. The enclosure gate shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. Number 11, that the restaurant shall provide disposal of grease waste in accordance with section 13.20.380 of the City Code of Ordinances. Number 12, that the proposed construction shall meet the Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance, including detention requirements, and that the petitioner shall secure all required permits, including soil erosion and sedimentation control. Number 13, that all new pole-mounted light fixtures shall not exceed a height of 20 feet and shall be aimed and shielded to minimize stray light trespassing across property lines and glaring into adjacent roadways. Number 14, that only conforming wall signage is approved of this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 15, that no LED light board or exposed neon shall be permitted on the site, including, but not limited to, the building or around the windows. Number 16, that unless approved by the proper local authority, any type of exterior advertising such as promotional flags, streamers, or sponsor vehicles designed to attract the attention of passing motorists shall be prohibited. Number 17, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for. And number 18, pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the City of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by City Council, and unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Sorry about that. Is there any support for that motion?
Support.
All right, we have a motion to approve offered by Mrs. McHugh, supported by Mrs. Smiley. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. McHugh,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero,
No.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
No.
Chair Magno says no. Chairman Wilshire.
Votes aye, and motion passes. This will go on to City Council with an approving recommendation, and we wish the petitioner and the representatives good luck with this project.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You have a good evening. And Mr. Secretary, can we go on to item number 2 on our agenda?
Yes, we can. Petition 2021-02-02-03, submitted by Infinity Homes and Company, requesting special waiver use approval pursuant to sections 20.01 and 20.02A of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended, to develop a planned residential development under the single-family clustering option Emerson Oaks, consisting of 35 site condominium lots on the property at 28,400 West Chicago Avenue, the former Wilson Elementary School site, located on the north side of West Chicago, between Harrison and Middle Belt in the northwest quarter of Section 36.
Thank you, Mr. Caramagno. Mr. Tormina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposal to develop a planned residential development under the single-family clustering option. The location is the former Wilson Elementary at the northwest corner of West Chicago and Harrison. This property measures 8.74 acres and is a perfect square, 617 feet by 617 feet. The property is currently being rezoned from PL, public land, to R1, one-family residential. Council gave first reading on December 2nd of last year. R1 conventional lot size requirements are 7,200 square feet per lot, with a minimum 60 feet per lot width and 120 feet for lot depth. The cluster option allows for reduced lot sizes in order to preserve open space and to overcome natural and other unique obstacles or constraints that pose challenges to developing a site using conventional design standards. In the case of R1 zoning, the maximum permitted density is 4 dwelling units per acre for a single family cluster. So for the subject property, which is 8 3/4 acres in size, the maximum number of units would be 35. The submitted plan for Emerson Oaks shows exactly 35 site condominium lots. As you can see from the plan, access would be from both Harrison and West Chicago. A new road identified on the plans as Parkside Court would extend north from West Chicago for a distance of approximately 420 feet and would end in a cul-de-sac. The other road, which is named Tulipwood, would extend west from Harrison for a distance of approximately 410 feet, where it would intersect with Parkside Court. Both roads would be public and have a right-of-way width of 50 feet in lieu of the standard 60 feet. The new roads would provide access to 30 of the 35 home sites. 5 other units would front on and have direct access from West Chicago, and those are identified as lots 1 through 5. Sidewalk would be provided in front of all the lots, and the new sidewalk system would also join with the existing public sidewalks along both Harrison and West Chicago Avenue. Under the clustering option, there is no minimum lot size requirement. Instead, the zoning ordinance establishes minimum standards for front yard setbacks and spacing between buildings. In the R1 zoning district, the minimum spacing between buildings is 10 feet, and the majority of the lots in this development measure 52 feet by 115 feet for a lot area of 5,980 square feet. A management of the site's stormwater runoff would occur in the northeast corner and would be in the form of an open system that includes a forebay for pretreatment and a main detention basin. There are several open space areas located throughout the development, including within and around the detention basin. This area measures approximately 20,680 square feet. There's one along the west side of the property, totaling roughly 28,800 square feet. Other open space areas are along a portion of West Chicago, equal to about 2,390 square feet, and then along Harrison Avenue, totaling 4,700 square feet. Also included is the dedication of land in the northeast corner to the city of Livonia. The subject land, which measures approximately 40 feet along Harrison by 309 feet, would be improved to provide additional parking at Clement Circle Pool. The dedicated area equals 13,921 square feet and would add 44 parking spaces to the existing parking lot. Stormwater runoff from the expanded parking lot would be directed to and managed via the new detention basin, which lies immediately to the south. The additional spaces are needed to accommodate the demand for parking during peak summer pool hours, and the superintendent of Parks and Recreation, who is present this evening, has reviewed the plans and is in full support of the improvements. Added together, the open space and dedicated land totals 70,501 square feet, or 1.61 acres, which equates to roughly 2,014 square feet per lot. This is substantially more than the 760 square feet per lot that is required for new subdivisions. Landscaping plan has been submitted. It's fully detailed and it shows a variety of plantings throughout the condominium subdivision, including along the site's frontages on West Chicago and Harrison, along the north and west sides of the property. There are also street trees provided for each of the lots. That is a summary of the project, Mr. Chairman. There's quite a bit of correspondence. If you would like, I can begin to read that out.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, first is a letter from our engineering division dated February 16th that reads, in accordance with your request, the engineering division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed project at this time. The property is assigned the address of 28400 West Chicago Avenue, and a legal description included on the plan submitted by the owner appears to be correct and should be used to describe the parcel. The proposed development is currently serviced by public water main, storm, and sanitary sewers, and the submitted drawings indicate that the new utility connections will be constructed to service the proposed parcel layout. Easements will need to be provided for the new water and sanitary sewers, as well as portions of the storm sewer that are to be maintained by the city. At this time, Exhibit B drawings have not been provided to show proposed easements, so we cannot determine if the proposed easements are correct. The proposed construction will be required to meet the Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance, including detention requirements. Detention is shown on the preliminary plans, and a full review of the proposed development will be completed when the plans are submitted for permitting, although it should be noted that the developer will be required to submit soil borings for roadway and detention areas indicating soil makeup and water level elevations, regular and seasonal. The submitted drawings indicate that the proposed roadways are to be 27 feet wide, centered within a 50-foot wide right-of-way. Current engineering department standards require roadways to be a minimum of 31 feet wide and a minimum right-of-way width of 60 feet. The submitted drawings indicate that the proposed roadway is to be named Parkside Court, but it should be noted that Parkside is already used by another roadway in the city. The developer will need to rename the proposed roadway to a unique street name or use an existing name that is in alignment with the proposed road. A letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter of no objection from the Inspection Department dated March 9th and signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. We have a letter from the Livonia Fire and Rescue dated February 10th that reads, "We have no objections to the proposal with the following stipulations. Using the City of Livonia Department of Public Works, Engineering Division Site Plan Design Standards, page 11 of 32 as a guide, fire hydrant spacing for multiple single-family home sites must at a maximum be spaced every 500 feet. The Fire Prevention Division is requesting the placement of an additional fire hydrant at the corner of Parkside and Tulipwood, either at lot 21 or 8. That letter is signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Division of Police dated February 10th and signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. We have a letter of no objection coming from the Department of Finance dated February 19th and signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. Next is a letter from the Office of the Treasurer dated February 9th that reads, in accordance with the request, the Treasurer's Office has reviewed the name and addresses connected with the above noted petition. At this time, there are taxes due, even though the current property owner is exempt from most. They do pay for street lighting, but they are not delinquent until March 2nd. Therefore, I have no objections to the proposal. That letter is signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. Next, we have an email correspondence from an mposters@aol.com dated February 21st that reads as follows. I live just across the street on Hartel in West Chicago. I really like the green space and or park area as it exists. I do not want to see condos blocking the view of the park. This area is supposed to be a floodplain for the water pumping station that exists right there. I also like the open area as it stops the noise of the vehicles speeding up and down West Chicago from echoing across the street into my backyard. I live at 9444 Hartel Street. My name is Mark Tribus. I have lived here since 1984. I worked for the City of Livonia for more than 36 years. Over the years, I have noticed that the Planning Commission has made many boneheaded decisions. You have caused many businesses to leave the city. You have also stopped many companies from having a business here. In fact, the Planning Commission was so boneheaded that we do not have a downtown area. We do not have an entertainment area. Surrounding areas like Plymouth, Canton, Westland all have these areas. All we have is a big money pit called Greenmead. We were not allowed to use it for many music or entertainment type ventures because of the reasons only known to old fogies. Again, please leave us citizens some green space so that we won't have to pay a fee to see a real blade of grass in some old museum. Next is an email from a Derek Parrott dated March 1st that reads as follows. I am sending this email in regards to the proposed condominium development at 28400 West Chicago Avenue between Harrison and Middlebelt Roads in the northwest quarter of Section 36. I'm writing to express my concern and reticence of a condo development smack in the center of our neighborhood. The homes in our neighborhood consist of mid-century homes built primarily in the late 1940s and early 1950s and possess a consistent aesthetic charm that contributes to our sense of community. If the lot is to be rezoned for residential needs, I would very much prefer that it be developed in a consistent style with the rest of the neighborhood. Looking at the designs for two of Infinity Homes developments in Livonia, Heritage Square and Dover Court, I feel that a glut of two-story condos would be little more than a nice-looking pimple on our neighborhood. I choose the word pimple specifically. A blemish is the first thing that will catch one's eye. And similarly, this development would be equally difficult to ignore as a series of nigh identical two-story condos will quickly dominate the skyline from all directions. If Infinity Homes would like to develop smack in the center of our neighborhood, I think it would be more appropriate and tasteful to adhere to the look and the feel that the community possesses, as opposed to slapping down rows of condos that do little to serve or represent the history of our area. Thank you, Derek Parrott. And lastly, we have an email from Beth dated March 8th that reads, my name is Beth Graham, and I live at 28815 West Chicago Street. I am concerned about Infinity Homes building on the former Wilson School site. I do not think they should be allowed any exemptions or special waivers. I have visited Infinity Homes nearby development at Park West on Ann Arbor Trail, and there are issues here which would negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. Since 2019 or earlier, the site at Park West has been bare dirt. I looked at it last year when a few structures had gone up. The site was extremely messy with huge piles of dirt leaking into the nearby streets, piles of trash and rubble. The homes here, at least the size of the typical home surrounding, and have the garage as the main feature facing the street, which is not a friendly and walkable appearance. As of now, in March 2021, the site appears even worse. This is a road along the outside of the development, equivalent of Harrison and West Chicago, for the site under construction. Piles of trash are under consideration. Piles of trash, lumber, and dirt are out in the open, and dirt runs into the street. With the schools nearby in Clement Circle Park and pool adjacent to Wilson School site, there are unattended kids walking constantly. The sidewalk here have been closed off to hold piles of dirt. And she provides photographs with her email correspondence, so I apologize for not being able to show those. The lots under construction, including open foundations, have no fencing or security around them that I could see. There is trash and debris all over, which is blowing against the neighbors' fences and into their yards, along with the dirt from the bare ground. After 2 or 3 years' time, only a few houses have completed. What will the impact be on the Clement Circle pool and to our roads and sidewalks to have a site like this under construction for many years? There will be dirt blowing off it all summer into the pool. I am also unhappy because the Infinity Homes has stated that they will cut down any existing trees on the property and plant new ones. The mature trees at the corner of West Chicago and Harrison are of a size that we will not see again in our lifetime, even if new trees are planted. A number of new evergreen trees planted at Park West entrance already appear to be dying. Here is the Wilson School site in spring. Again, photographs are provided. I am not against houses being built here, but I would like to see it done in a way that is safe and would add to the community and be a part of it rather than putting up a wall in the middle of it. And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that is the extent of the correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Is there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Tormina? If not, our petitioner is in the audience, Mr. Suave. I'm going to give him an opportunity to address the commission. Is there anybody else with you, Mr. Suave, that we need to recognize?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Planning Commission, Mr. Chairperson. I believe Greg Dunnan with RP Dunnan should be on the meeting call. I'm not sure, I can't see if he's here or not.
Yes, he is. I will make sure to give him an opportunity to speak as well, but we'll start with you. Of course, ask that you start with your name and address, business address, please.
Sure. Again, thank you everyone for the opportunity. My name is Reno Suave with Infinity Homes. Our corporate address is 42400 Grand River, Novi, Michigan, Suite 112. To start, my brother Rico with Bellagio Homes, who presented last week at the study meeting, who's also my partner on the development side of the project, is unavailable this evening. So I'm pleased to discuss with the commission and potentially neighboring residents who are present this potential new and exciting upcoming development. As I stated, Greg Dunnan is also with us to address any civil questions, and I think I heard Tim Davis is in attendance too on behalf of Parks and Recs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so Tim can discuss if there's any questions regarding the parking lot dedication that Mark explained. As stated, the project is being proposed as for 35 new single-family homes and will consist of a mixture of ranch, story and a half, which is your Cape Cod, and two-story colonial floor plans consisting of a minimum 1,500 to 2,700 square feet. We typically offer anywhere from 12 to 14 production plans that we build across a number of communities. We're currently building them in some communities in the city, which I'll explain here in a few seconds. So that we offer a pretty good variety of the plans that we offer. So not every house is going to look the same. We do have control over, floor plans that are being built side by side within the neighborhood. So meaning that a buyer can't come in there and pick, let's just say you're illustrating the Traverse model right now. A buyer can't come in there and say, I want a Traverse on unit number 19 and elevation A, and then another buyer is going to come in and say, well, I want a Traverse on unit number 20, elevation A. So we have control over that. So it keeps the, architectural integrity of the design of the community. The project and scope will be very similar to what we have done and been successful with in the city the past, 3 to 4 years. Our family's been building, myself included, has been building the city for several decades now. But we, like I said, to reference a few recent sites that we've done, the Washington Park community at Amber Road and Hicks, which was 50 units that was done from 2017 to early 2019. Heritage Square, which we've done at 6 Newburgh, which we're currently finishing up now. That's 50 new homes. And then also we're building, it's not in the city, but it's very close by. I think someone referenced Park West. That's an 80 unit home community, single family home community with Livonia schools at Ann Arbor Trail in Farmington. With respect to the overall subject site, over the past several months, we've worked with various departments within the city. Our engineers and design team have worked and also took into consideration some of the questions and concerns were raised from the rezoning meetings. For example, a number of residents have expressed their concern over the limited parking that has been an issue for the swim club during its peak summer months. We work with Tim Davis's office to dedicate a portion of the property to provide a community benefit, to the residents to alleviate this parking issue. Given the site's some inherent challenges, we created a buffer, as you can see on the conceptual drawing there, of open space between the property and adjacent properties. This not only provides open space for the community, but also serves as an open landscape buffer for the treatment facility that's surrounded by its barbed wire fencing. I was on the meeting last week, and it was kind of news to me. And I asked my brother after, because he referenced the barbed wire fencing. He said this is one of the last. There's only 1 or 2 remaining properties within the city that have barbed wire fencing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And also, this is, like I said, this property is also surrounded by the roads and the swim club. The stormwater retention facility, as referenced on the plan, also creates some natural beauty and creates an additional buffer, what will be the newly formed parking lot in the Emerson community. We believe we came up with what we consider a great plan for this parcel, and we look forward to to its success for not only for the city, but also its current and future residents. I'm here on behalf of our companies and like I said, our engineers here as well. So just let us know if you guys have any questions or concerns that get brought up during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suave. Is there any questions for our petitioner from any of the commissioners? If there's no questions from any of the commissioners for our petitioner, then we do have people in our audience who are wishing to speak for or against this item. Anyone who is wishing to do that, please click raise hand so that we can recognize you. And we'll start with the user Kim B, who has been patiently waiting. And we'll give her an opportunity to unmute herself and start with her name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Kimberly and I live at 28816 Hathaway Street. Like my neighbors, I also live across the street from the current green space, and I am in wholehearted disagreement with the rezoning of this area for residential use and the building of condominiums. I think that building in this area presents a real safety and traffic concern. The speed limit already is 35, which is, in my opinion, quite high for the area, given that there's an elementary school and a main road not far away. And with increased traffic and increased dwelling within that area, specifically with single family unit homes, I think there's a real potential for an increased population of school age students and a great increase in traffic, which is already an existing problem in the area. Furthermore, I'm in agreement with my neighbor Mark that I like the green space, and my neighbor Beth that those mature trees are really special to the area, and it would truly be a shame to see them go away, because it's true that we do have limited public space in Livonia, and I think that we need to maintain that and really reconsider the use of this area for commercial or residential rather development.
Okay, thank you, Kim. We appreciate your comments, and we're going to take your comments into consideration as we make our decision. Next, we have Frank S. is listed. I'm going to give you a chance to unmute yourself and again, start with your name and address, sir.
Yes, Frank Scambati, 9850 Harrison. I do agree. I wish they could keep those trees there. I've watched those trees grow. But my concern was because of past history with that area, when they start developing, is there any chance of our basements flooding? Because years ago, that was an issue in that area. Then the city, the school spent a lot of money and time, fixing that area. Now I just hope, it doesn't bring back the flood.
Mr. Stambati, what we'll try to do is give once we hear from all the citizens, we'll give a chance for our petitioner to address any of the questions or concerns that were raised. But what I can tell you is regarding stormwater management, the requirements that the county has for stormwater management is much stricter than it's ever been in the past. And what happens is each development that occurs, such as this proposed one, the stormwater must be maintained on that site. Any stormwater that collects on that site has to be maintained, put into retention areas, and then slowly discharged into a sewer system as to not overwhelm it. So what we often find is that these types of developments actually improve the water situation for neighboring properties, because right now you have no control system right on that property, and they'll be putting one in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person on our list here we have Chelsea Ellis. I'm going to give you a chance to unmute yourself and make your comments. Thank you.
59 West Chicago Street. I have a couple concerns with the proposed project. The first concern being traffic usage flow. West Chicago is already a fairly busy street, and Harrison is a small street that keeps a pretty good amount of traffic itself. And so the Tulip Wood exit onto Harrison might be rather difficult, given that Harrison is a smaller street. In general, I think this is a lot of houses to try to put into this corner for the sake of the traffic that it's going to generate. Additionally, the corner of West Chicago and Harrison does get a little busy at times, especially around school time. So the houses that are proposed to have driveways onto West Chicago, especially lots probably 1, 2, maybe even 3, would be difficult to access during those times. West Chicago does get quite a bit of foot traffic as well, with students walking to and from school, with people heading to the park. And so I think that's something to consider too, as we're looking at the amount of traffic that these houses are going to bring in to this area. And we want to keep our pedestrians safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. You were a little quiet at the beginning, but we did hear what you were talking about in regards to traffic with both the vehicles and the pedestrians. So we appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this petition? If so, you can click raise hand and we'll give you a chance to speak. Let's see, we have Karen Baird. You can unmute yourself and introduce yourself with name and address, please.
Hi, this is Karen Baird. My address is 14195 Westmore, Livonia. I have a daughter who lives in the neighborhood. A couple of things about this development I want to express concern about. One is that retention pond. I know that we have to have retention ponds by modern zoning, but the retention ponds I've seen, they seem to me more like mosquito swamp generators that really bring down the ability to enjoy the outdoor space in the summer months. So I'd be interested to know what's going to be done to keep the bug problem down. Another item that I want to ask about, or let's say express concern about, is just the type and style of houses that are going into this area. They are not in keeping with the general aesthetic of the neighborhood. I would say they stick out like a sore thumb and will reduce the enjoyment of the area because of the lack of green space. Livonia is so congested. I've lived in Livonia for 35 years, and it seems like all the green space has been gobbled up, especially within the neighborhoods. I hate to see it disappear because it takes away the charm, and I feel the property values within the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Baird. We appreciate your comments, and we're going to, when we go back to the petitioner, we'll ask about if he can address the issue of mosquitoes and bug control for those retention ponds and what his intentions are there. So we appreciate that comment. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this petition? If so, please click raise hand. I don't see anyone else clicking raise hand. There was one comment that came through the chat that I want to at least read out so that it's in our record. It's from one of our attendees named Catherine, and she asks, what reason is there to add more homes? Is it just because we can, because the land is there? As far as I can see, the only reason is so someone can make money by eliminating the only green space that exists in this neighborhood. So I wanted to make sure that that comment was also recognized. If there is no one else in our audience with comments, I want to go back to Mr. Suave. You heard some questions from our residents and comments about traffic, both vehicles and pedestrians, and also the trees that exist on that property, and also regarding pest management, bug management in the retention pond area, and also water management. If you could address some of those issues, I'd appreciate it, Mr. Suave.
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, thank you. To start with, regarding the stormwater retention, that's actually, I'm gonna probably pass that one over to our engineer, as I want to verify if that's going to be a, Greg, can you verify to everyone if that's going to be a dry pond? If not, we would probably put an aerator in there like we do a lot of our other communities where the water is actively flowing, and that helps alleviate that problem. But I think they're trying to get away from what I think the engineering has been trying to get away from the wet pond, and to go away with, do away with, obviously phase in more of the dry ponds, which we have had to go back and modify on several projects.
Mr. Donnan?
Yes, that's correct. It's currently proposed to be a dry pond.
Okay, and Mr. Donnan, just for our record, can we get your name and address?
Yes, Greg Donnan from RP Donnan Civil Engineers, 32233 Schoolcraft Road, Livonia, Michigan.
Great, thank you, sir. Mr. Suave?
So yeah, so I guess that kind of leads a big concern. That was, as it came up, I was kind of concerned about that myself. But I mean, I think, like I said, we've had to went back, and engineering has made us go back in the past and modify, the water flow ponds to dry ponds. So that's kind of reassuring for us as well. With respect to, question regarding green space, this used to be, as everybody knows, this used to be a former school. So at one point, I'm not sure, I reached out to Livonia Public Schools. I didn't see at one point how many kids were at this facility. I don't know approximately, but I would assume there had to be, for it being an elementary school, there had to be at least 200 to 300 students there probably, I would assume. So this actually, from what its prior use was, I know it's green now, but at one point there was obviously a structure there that was removed. So any trees on site, we always try to, especially because it's natural beauty, we always try to preserve whatever green space we can on site. You have trees there that have been matured for several decades, or who knows, probably over 100 years. And those are nice features when we go and we sell a house with somebody. That's nice to have in your front yard, your backyard. So we try to preserve anything that we can. with respect to the basements flooding, I think, you said it, Mr. Chairperson, everything's retained either on site. Sanitary is obviously drained to separate, discharge to a separate sanitary discharge. So that that shouldn't be a concern. The style of the homes, we feel that the homes are pretty much, built to today's standards. We've done this before with other communities. For example, even in Park West, not too far on the street from here, granted that's in Westland, but a lot of the same homes that are adjacent to Park West are also there. And we feel that it's been a good blend. We've had a ton of compliments. We get a ton of positive feedback on the community, how it was transitioned to that. Even with Washington Park, the surrounding neighborhood is very similar. The architectural is very similar to the surrounding homes at Emerson. So hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Suave. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Caremagno.
Reno, there was a question early on or a comment early on about while the building is being done, controlling the dirt, controlling the site. So with that question, a site of this size, how long from start to finish would this site be disrupted?
Based on the current housing market, we feel we could probably be sold out but not built out within a year. I'd say probably 18 months. Pending there's nothing unforeseen, I guess, which I'm kind of reluctant to say after last year. So, but yeah, I would say about 18 months. In respect to the resident's question on that, I guess I forgot to touch on that. That Park West was in the middle of its development, and obviously we got shut down for COVID. So that site sat there for a period of time dormant, pretty much through the winter. And then obviously once, this time last year, we just sat there till, up until pretty much June until we started. And that once we kind of reopened up, getting utilities and everything else was just a big drag. And it still is a drag now. We're still having material shortage and labor shortages. That's been, as many as you probably know, that's been a big issue, not only in Livonia, Michigan, but pretty much across the nation in our industry. But to answer your question, we do always do our best to maintain everything on site. We do have, cleanup personnel that monitors our sites daily. Park West is probably between myself and my brother's company. Like I said, there's 80 homes. It's got to be one of the busier housing developments that I've seen around southeastern Michigan. We probably have at least, if any of you have driven through there, I encourage you to do so. If not, there's got to be at least 35 homes going on there currently at the moment. So it's a busy site. On top of that, during the days and on weekends, we get just an overflow of traffic into our sales office there. So it's a busy site. So I mean, there's some cases, I agree with the resident what they said. The site's not always looking its best. I'd be lying if I told you every day it's looking pristine. But when you have that much production volume going on, it does. It is going to look like a construction site at some points.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Any other questions for our petitioner from the commission? Mr. Tormina.
Mr. Suave, you heard the comment about the dirt and the dust and potentially getting into the pool. What can you provide this evening in terms of mitigating measures to reduce the likelihood of that happening? Timing worked out and you were doing your heavy earthwork in the middle of the summer. That wouldn't bode well on a windy day, depending on which way the wind is moving for people using the pool. What can you commit to this evening in terms of trying to keep that down to a minimum?
One thing I think that it really helps is having a daily, if we're getting a street sweeper out on site, daily or as needed. I think that's really key. And if the construction traffic, obviously there's only so many ways to get into this community. It is within an existing neighborhood. West Chicago and Harrison, if we need to get street sweepers out there daily to keep any, sedimentation, and obviously we'll maintain our soil control measure. That's obviously maintained and required by the city. So sedimentation is staying out of the stormwater system. But I think that's probably the best way for dust control is probably to make sure that the roads are always maintained properly. That's what we do everywhere else.
What about watering?
As far as during while construction activities going on?
The dust control, yeah, through watering, keeping the dust down.
That's something I think we would just probably take on a case by cases. The days where you're going to have heavy winds, I think we probably have to do that because, like I said, you are right. If people are using the pool and that dust is going in there, it's not good for many reasons. But I think during days where you have, heavy winds or something, we just either one refrain from working, or two, there will be some type of dust control.
All right, thank you, Mr. Suave. Mr. Davis from our Parks and Rec Department is also with us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ted Davis, representing the Parks and Recreation Department. To address one of the concerns regarding, having a pool next to a construction site, about 3 or 4 years ago, after we completed construction on Clemens Circle Pool, if people remember in that neighborhood, there was significant construction, I believe, with water mains or gas lines, and they used the former Wilson School site as a staging area. So we were able, obviously, to withstand that, and there was significant construction debris and traffic going on during that time. So, although obviously being next to a construction site is less than ideal for a swimming pool, and keeping it clean, I do feel confident that we will be able to maintain a quality environment during the construction of this. And any help that developers can provide on this will obviously be appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Mr. Suave, just one quick question regarding the lots that are closest to the pool. I believe that would be 24, 25, 26. Those would be the most likely ones to cause issues with dust in the pool area, given their proximity to that facility. Is it possible that, is there any way to control the timing of when the houses are built on those lots so that you could minimize construction during the summer pool season?
Is the concerns from a noise standpoint, or is it from going back to regarding like dust and any type of?
I think dust is the greater concern.
Okay. I kind of refrain from committing to that because maybe as many as you know, when a buyer comes in, they want to purchase a house, I really can't. If I were signing a contract now, and right now our company's got probably a 2 to 3 month backlog as a company for everything we're starting, I would hate to tell someone, and probably would lose a sale if I was to say, your house won't be ready. We couldn't start your house until next November, or until next, maybe it would be more like next September once the pool is closed again. So what I will commit to is that we would do our best to maintain the dust control, and really with single family housing, the biggest dust control would be during the basement excavation and grading, but really grading is pretty much low density, and really you're going to have, once the house is framed and the rough framing's up, there's not a whole lot of dust. Maybe when the masons are out there and installing brick, but after that, there's really not much else than that. But the basement excavation is probably the worst of it. So what we could probably commit to is doing that during certain days where, again, weekends are probably, like I said, weekends don't usually work well because we couldn't get inspections, during the week. But we just probably have to select certain days as when we would do a basement excavation. But I think that would probably be the worst of it, would be the excavation, grading and excavating.
Okay, so at least on this site, you're going to commit to dust control measures to try to minimize any airborne dust that you can.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments from any of our commissioners? If not, there is one person in the audience wishing to speak again, Ms. Baird. I'm going to, normally we don't want to create a back and forth debate, but I do want to give her an opportunity to speak because she has been patiently waiting to at least address us again. So I want to do that before we close out the public hearing. Ms. Baird, you can unmute yourself and make your comments.
Yes, I didn't realize before that the builder is Suave, who is the same builder who rebuilt the house next door to me when the house next door burned down in a fire. Suave rebuilt it next door. There have been so many problems. I had mentioned that drainage pond, but I did not realize it was the same people. There are problems with drainage. When they built that house, our land started sloping down, pulling away from our house, falling into the pit of the basement, basically. And since that time, the owners have been so frustrated. They've given up trying to deal with Suave. They're having problems with drainage around the house, water coming into the house from outside. And it just puts my mind in a real state of concern about how they are going to address those kind of issues. They couldn't take care of it when it was only one house next door to me. How are they going to handle it for a whole neighborhood? I'm concerned about the quality of their work.
Okay, we appreciate your comment, and we will take that into account. Thank you for making that. And I'm going to go back to Mr. Suave for his last comments.
Just to touch on what the prior person just said, I'm not sure. We have a big family. You know, everybody's in real estate, so maybe someone else in my family that possibly built that house has, you know, from a business standpoint, has no relation to what we're doing here. I'm going to be very clear on that. So I don't typically build existing homes. We typically build in larger communities such as this. So I don't recall our company. I don't think Rico's company has built something next to an existing house that burned down. So just because it has the same last name doesn't mean it's affiliated with this project. So just for the record on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Suave. I appreciate that. And I will close the public hearing at this time. A motion would be in order from the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Smiley.
I'll make an approving resolution that the request to develop a planned residential development under the single-family clustering option, Emerson Oaks, consisting of 35 site condominium lots on the property at 28400 West Chicago Avenue, the former Wilson Elementary School site, is hereby approved, subject to city council approval and the following conditions. The master deed and the bylaw complies with the requirements of Article 20, Section 20.01 to 20.06 of the zoning ordinance number 543 as amended, and the subdivision control ordinance title 16, chapter 16.04 to 16.40 of the Livonia Code of Ordinances, subject to the following modifications and exceptions, that the first floor of each condominium unit shall be brick or stone on all four sides, and the total amount of brick or stone on each two-story unit shall not be less than 65% and not less than 80% on one-story dwellings. That the minimum floor area for each dwelling shall not be less than 1,400 square feet for one-story ranches and 1,600 square feet for multi-story Cape Cod or colonial. That all exterior chimneys shall be of brick. That the site plan identified as sheet 1 dated January the 19th, 2021, prepared by RP Donan Incorporated, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That the landscape planting plan and landscape notes and details identified as LP-1 and LP-2 respectively, both dated January the 18th, 2021, prepared by Nagy Devlin Land Design, are hereby approved. And the street lights and sidewalks shall be installed throughout the development to the satisfaction of the engineering department. In the event of a conflict between the provisions set forth in the master deed and bylaws and the requirements set forth in the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543, as amended, the zoning ordinance requirements shall prevail and the petitioner shall comply with the zoning ordinance requirements. That the petitioner shall include language in the master deed and bylaws or a separate recordable instrument wherein the condominium association shall reimburse the City of Livonia for any maintenance or repair costs incurred for the stormwater detention and outlet facilities. Excuse me. That only a conforming entrance marker is approved with this petition, and any additional sign, excuse me, one sec. I'm sorry. And any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That all required cash deposits, certified checks, irrevocable bank letters of credit, and/or surety bonds, which shall be established by the city engineer pursuant to Article 28 or 18, excuse me, of the ordinance number 543, Section 18.66 of the ordinance shall be deposited with the city prior to the issuance of the engineering permits for this site condominium development, and pursuant to Section 19.01 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the city of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by the city council. And unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Is there support for the motion?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Smiley, supported by Mrs. McHugh. Mrs. Smiley, please get a drink of water and take it easy the rest of the meeting. It was tough on you. Is there any comments on the motion that's on the floor to approve? If not,
Mr. Chair.
Secretary, you can call the roll.
Mr. Chair, I had a comment. There
sure.
was a letter about a fire plug being reinstalled or moved, an additional one. Is that it? Was that in the approving minute resolution?
No.
I did not see anything about that. Mr. Tormina, do we want to, can we add that as an item?
You can, and we'll be happy to construct language that I think addresses that issue. Yeah, we'll add it and let the engineers and the fire marshal resolve precisely what's required there. Since it is a code requirement, that'll have to be reviewed by our engineering division before final approval, but we'll make mention of it in the resolution.
Yeah, it seems like something that wouldn't hurt to have in there, even though it is a requirement. I assume the maker and the supporter of that motion would be okay with that addition?
Yes.
I see nods, so that's good.
One more thing, Mr. Chair, I don't know if there's anything we can do, but should we talk at all about the dust control or whatever? That was quite the conversation. Mark, is there anything we can put in there? You know, I don't think there was a black and white answer, but if there was some sort of wording that we could add, just to make that part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think it would be good to include some language. Again, we can provide that in the resolution that goes to council.
Okay.
Give us some time to put together that language that I think addresses the concern.
Thank you.
I think that makes a lot of sense too. Ms. Smiley, you're okay with that being added?
Absolutely, yes. Wonderful.
Very good. So we'll add language about dust control measures on this project. Any other questions or comments about this motion? If not, we'll go back to Mr. Caremagno to take the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Caremagno says aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, the motion passes. We'll go on to City Council with an approving recommendation to our petitioner. We wish you luck with your project. And for our residents, you can continue to follow this at the City Council level where they'll make the decision. We are just a recommending body.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Suave. Good luck. And that takes us to the end of the public hearing section of our agenda. Mr. Secretary, I believe we now move on to item number 3 from our miscellaneous section.
Petition 2021-02-08-01 submitted by Gargaro Construction, requesting approval of all plans required by section 18.58 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543, as amended in connection with a proposal to remodel the exterior of the commercial strip center at 33527, 529, and 5357 7 Mile Road, located on the south side of 7 Mile Road between Farmington Road and Myron Avenue in the northeast quarter of Section 9.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina?
Thank you. This involves property on 7 Mile Road, the south side, just west of Farmington Road. As you can see, the zoning is C1 local business. This project involves exterior renovations to 2 adjacent commercial buildings that are under common ownership. Combined, the 2 buildings have about 5,000 square feet of area, and they're set back at least 50 feet from 7 Mile Road. As you can see from the aerial, off-street parking is located in front of the buildings with some additional shared parking located at the rear. The proposal is essentially to unify the appearance of both buildings. As you can see from these aerials, they have similar heights as well as similar exterior materials. As proposed, the north-facing facades would be completely remodeled. The existing brick would be replaced with new brick as well as cultured stone. There'd be this tower element created for the entrance on the building on the that is to the east. Some additional design features include this accent band across the center of the building. There would be wood beams as well as a suspended canopy provided at the tower above the entranceway, smooth metal panels across the top, as well as a new opening that would be installed adjacent to the west entrance. The remaining back portion of the building would be repainted in order to match the new color scheme. And that's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman. I'll run through the correspondence quickly.
Sure.
We have a letter from our engineering division dated February 4th indicating that they have no objections to the proposal as the existing building is currently serviced by public utilities. A letter of no objection from our Livonia Fire and Rescue dated February 10th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal, excuse me. A letter of no objection from Scott Shapansky of the Traffic Bureau dated February 3rd. Next is a letter from our Department of Finance that reads, I have reviewed the addresses connected with the above noted petition. The following water bill charges due to the city of Livonia. Water bill charge $584.18. That letter is signed by Connie Compula, Chief Accountant. Letter from the Office of Treasurer dated February 3rd indicating no objections to the proposal, signed by Linda Scheel, Treasurer of the city. And that is... excuse me. Yeah, no, that is the extent of the correspondence. Thank you. We do not have the inspection department.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Any questions for our planning staff? If not, Mr. Tormina, one quick question. I know at our study meeting, we talked briefly about the color rendering and the accuracy of this color that's represented on the screen that we see. Did you hear any more about that?
Yeah, that information was relayed to the petitioner who is raising his hand right now, and hopefully he has some additional information for us. But yes, he's aware of that question that was raised at the study meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll find out from the petitioner more about that. Thank you. If there's no other questions for our planning staff, I'm going to go to Mr. Gargaro, who's in our audience. Good evening. You can unmute yourself and start with your name and address, please.
Good evening. Mario Gargaro, 33527 7 Mile Road, Livonia 48152.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Anything else that you would like to add from what you've heard so far from our planning staff?
Well, a couple of things. After a conversation with Scott Miller, right off the bat, he had mentioned maybe the second tower over the second set of doors to the right-hand side, which we have added to these elevations, and I can email back over. I got them back a little late to send to him last Friday, but I can email those back to him, tomorrow, so you guys can take a look at that. In regard to the selections, I've actually got a sheet of selections, and I could even put together some of the actual selections to bring in if that would be helpful. But I do have names and model numbers of stones and paints and that type of stuff, if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, normally we like to see material samples. Of course, we're usually in person to be able to actually see them. It's a little more difficult with this whole Zoom thing, but
Absolutely.
if you could at least just describe the colors to us to understand, are we looking at a shade of black or a shade of gray or a shade of blue gray, or what exactly are you proposing?
The brick there is more of it's like a bronzish gray. So it'd be like almost like a dark grayish is what you'd call it almost. I know it doesn't look like that here. The paint color we'd be matching is called an urbane bronze. It's in Sherwin-Williams color. It's an SW7048 if you ever had a chance, if you wanted to look it up, but that would be kind of representative of the tone of the brick. So almost like a dark bronzish color.
Okay, good. Thank you. That helps. Do we have any questions from any of our commissioners for our petitioner?
Chair,
Mr. Bonjero.
just one little quick thing. I think it's a great, I like it a lot. It looks great. It came up at the study meeting. I think Pete brought it up about the post sign in front, out in front of the building in the middle of the parking lot. Is that coming down?
That wasn't in the plans. That's grandfathered in, and actually the building to the right, we own the building. It was the old Bill's Bike and Puck, and now an HVAC company we lease it to. And that, to be honest with you, that's where that water bill comes from. We'll get with him tomorrow to make sure that gets paid. But we hadn't planned on taking it down, but open to suggestions if it's something you'd like to see done. So,
In all honesty, that's been grandfathered in, and when he rented the building from us, that sign was there.
Yeah, that's not something we had put in.
And obviously, he's using it. He put up his sign on it right now. We need to talk to him about that. That's part of his lease.
Okay, I was just inquiring about it because it came up last week and we didn't get clarification on it. Otherwise, I think it's
we
great.
wouldn't be able to put those up now, but obviously they're already there. So,
Okay, thank you. The building looks great. It looks good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions for our petitioner? If not, I will go to the audience and see if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against it. There's not too many folks left. If so, click raise hand. I don't see anybody wishing to speak for or against it. So I'll go back to you, Mr. Gargaro, for any final comments that you'd like to make before we make our decision.
Oh, if you'd like, would you like some of these samples brought in? I could drop them off with Scott Miller, or what would be the best way to approach that?
Mr. Toromino, what's your feel on that?
Yeah, why don't you coordinate with Mr. Miller to have those samples delivered and the new renderings provided, because this item still has to go before City Council.
Understood. Yep, will do. I'll email over the new elevation rendering with the second tower as well tomorrow morning. That way he's got that. So
it's going to be a huge benefit for the city of Livonia. It's going to look really nice.
That would be good, yes. And that way our planning staff can make sure that information gets passed along to City Council for their review and chance to look at it if they wish.
Fantastic.
Okay, Ms. Smiley.
Yes, was there any discussion with Primo's Pizza about fixing that place up?
We thought about mentioning it to
them. They want to know what they said to me. They want to know what I was going to do. So we haven't showed them this yet, but they're going to have to step off your right.
I could mention it to Dominic though. We talk with them all the time. It'd be nice to see the whole thing kind of uniform even. So,
Yeah. Yes, it'd be a welcome addition.
Yes, definitely. So, okay, I'll mention it to Dominic to see if you wanted to get on board. It'd be nice to see this, like you said, all one.
Well, we don't want that part of our presentation.
Right. So, okay, very good, guys.
All right. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ventura.
Direct this to Mr. Toromino. In my package, I can't find any letter from the water department regarding delinquent water bills, but I do have a letter from Connie Cumpula, the chief accountant, regarding delinquent false alarm charges. And It's almost $2,900.
Well, we never had any of that at our location. I don't know what our tenant might have had.
Yeah, that could have been something. The space next door is leased by an HVAC company, so I'd have to check with him to see if that's something that went on there. Definitely not in our building. Those couldn't be from. So I could check with the tenant tomorrow to see what that's all about.
Mark, do these charges go with the property like water bills do?
You know, I don't see those false alarm charges. The letter I'm looking at from the finance department only references the water bill, and I'm not even sure that's delinquent. It just says that there's a water bill due.
Well, it just came in.
Yeah, Mr. Tormina, on page 138 of our electronic packet, there's a letter dated February 19th from Connie Compula about a false alarm delinquent charges of $2,852.50.
Yeah, and I don't have that in front of me. I apologize.
Yep.
The council will not act on this if there are any past due amounts, whether it's this property or the next one. If it involves this property that's under petition, they will make sure it's paid before they take final action. That I can.
So we pay our water bill. I know that the building belongs to me, and the water bill actually goes to them. If they haven't paid it, I was unaware of it. We just found out last week that those things were delinquent. And, well, we'll make sure it's taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ventura, is that
also charge as well, if that's the case.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ventura, are you okay?
I'm good with that. Thank you, Mr. Tormina.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions, comments, Ms. Smiley?
Yeah, one more. I'm sorry, I had a communication problem there. What was the conversation about those signs on a pole?
Well, I can't do much about that. That really belongs to the tenant that we leased the building to, and that was grandfathered in. He put the new sign up. Obviously, we could dress it up and maybe fix it up to make it look a little bit better, but it is what it is at this point.
So he wants to leave it up?
As far as I know, he does.
Okay, because the city's really trying to get away from those.
Well, I understand that, and
And how about like in your parking lot too? Isn't it kind of a?
Makes it a little difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does. I'm not going to say that's not true, but we for the two buildings that we do have plenty of parking to service the buildings itself. Obviously, Primo's parks in our lot a lot too with his clients and his purchasers that buy his goods. But the only reason that those bumper posts are there because everybody was backing into that sign causing problems. So.
Okay, well, if you can get rid of it, it
Well,
might be better.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
That'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. And of course, anyone who makes a motion is free to add language regarding that sign if they wish. That's not something that's unheard of for us to do. So any other questions, comments from any of the commissioners before we ask for a motion? I don't see any other questions or comments, so a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bonjero.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to remodel the exterior of the commercial strip center at 33527, 33529, and 33535 7 Mile Road is hereby approved, subject to City Council approval and the following conditions. Number one, that the exterior elevations plan prepared by GAV Associates as received by the Planning Department on February 1st, 2021 is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number two, the only conforming signage is approved with this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Three, that no LED light band or exposed neon shall be permitted on this site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. Number four, that unless approved by the proper local authority, any type of exterior advertising such as promotional flags, streamers, or sponsor vehicles designed to attract the attention of passing motorists shall be prohibited. Number 5, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for. And number 6, pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of this city of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by city council, and unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Thank you. Is there support for that motion?
Or
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Bonjero, supported by Mr. Caramagno. Mr. Bonjero, just to clarify, because we did have discussion about that pylon sign, is there any intention or desire for you to add any language regarding the pylon sign, or would you rather leave it grandfathered?
I'm fine with that. Just leave it grandfathered.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve. We've heard that motion. Is there any discussion or comments on that motion before we take a vote? I don't see any discussion, so I'll go to Mr. Caramagno to take the roll.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Caramagno votes aye. Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, and motion passes. We'll go on to the City Council with approving the recommendation. We thank you for attending this evening, Mr. Gargaro, and wish you luck with your project.
Thank you very much. I'll have those samples and new rendering tomorrow. Thanks much, guys.
Sounds great. You'll move on to City Council with that. So thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, we have item number 4 on our agenda.
Petition 2021-02-08-02 submitted by Quattro Construction LLC, requesting approval of all plans required by section 18.58 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended, in connection with a proposal to remodel the exterior of a commercial strip center, Plymouth Shops at 29195 through 29215 Plymouth Road, located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Garden Avenue and Middlebelt Road in the northwest quarter of section 36.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Toromina.
Thank you. This petition is similar to the last in that it involves renovations to an existing commercial building. This one is on the south side of Plymouth Road. It's just east of Middlebelt Road. The zoning is C2 general business. Site size is roughly 1.1 acre with 160 feet of frontage on the main road, Plymouth. Plymouth Shops is a multi-tenant retail center that contains a gross floor area of a little over 11,000 square feet. As you can see from this aerial photograph, off-street parking is located both in the front as well as the rear of the building. The building's existing facade consists of brick with large storefront windows. Tenant signage is in the form of multiple fabric awnings that extend across the upper part of the building above the windows. The proposed improvements include replacing the storefront windows, removing the awnings, and adding a series of new parapet walls that would extend above the building's existing roof line. This would raise the overall height of that parapet by about 6 feet, 8 inches, to a top elevation of just under 24 feet. As you can see, the new facade elements vary in height and width, and they consist of different materials and textures, really designed to make the building appear as if it has offsets and some relief along the storefront elevation. The building materials include a combination of stack stone, which is cultured stone, a long board, which I believe is an aluminum product or either composite, and then brick as well as limestone. There's a metal cap that would run along the top edge of the parapet, and the new design elements do wrap around the west and east elevations for a distance of roughly 10 feet on either side. No other changes or improvements are proposed as part of this petition. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll read out the correspondence. First is a letter dated February 5th from the Engineering Division indicating that they have no objections as the existing building is currently serviced by public utilities. That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. We have a letter of no objection coming from Livonia Fire and Rescue dated February 10th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. A similar letter from our Division of Police dated February 8th and signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. Next is a letter of no objection from Linda Scheel, Treasurer of the City of Livonia, dated February 8th. And lastly, we have a letter from Department of Finance that reads, I have reviewed the addresses connected with the above noted petition. The following water bill charges are due to the City of Livonia. Water bill charges 29,195 Plymouth, $11.18. Water bill charges 29,199 Plymouth, 18 cents. And water bill charges 29,215 Plymouth, $927.99. Total due to the City of Livonia, $939.35. And that letter is signed by Connie Kumpula, Chief Accountant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taormina. Any questions for our planning staff? If not, our petitioner, I believe, is in the audience, Mr. Quattro. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and add anything else that you would like to.
I'm Todd Quattro. We prepared the documents and with a contractor on the job. It is, the longboard is an aluminum panel. It's a wood grain. And we've used it in quite a few other areas. And the culture stone is there. As it describes out there, limestone's 1 inch thick and goes onto the thing, much like the cultured stone. Basically, it's just a facelift. You know, it's a dated center, and the tenant wants to, the owner of it wants to bring it up to a little more attractive to gain new tenants. There was some mention of the back parking lot. That is in the next year project. They do want to do that and take care of that area in the back. Although they want to attract a couple new tenants first, gain some funds in order to do the back area. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quattro. Is there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Smiley?
Yeah, are these colors pretty accurate?
Pretty accurate. The limestone's a little whiter probably than shown on here.
Okay.
The grays come across really well when you render, but the limestone, for some reason, it gets almost like a grayish thing through it. It's natural limestone that's cut.
Okay. And then that, is that wood looking or kind of?
Yeah, that has a wood grain in it. That's the called a rose color. I could drop off samples as well, but it's got an ingrained wood grain inside of the aluminum, so it looks like wood, and it lasts for forever.
Oh, it's very attractive. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
It probably is good if you drop them off because council likes to actually look at them.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions or comments for our petitioner? Mr. Quattro, I don't know that we got your business address. Can we get that for our record?
Sure. 201 North Park, Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Very good, thank you.
198.
Perfect, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, we'll ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item. Please click raise hand. I don't see anybody doing that. So if there's no other questions or comments from the commission, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll go with Mr. Ventura.
I call for an approving resolution at the request to remodel the exterior of the commercial strip center, Plymouth Shops at 29,195 through 29,215 Plymouth Road is hereby approved, subject to city council approval of the following conditions. That the exterior elevations plan identified as sheet number A3.1 dated February 2nd, 2021 is revised, prepared by Mohammed Nasari, Bosna engineer, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number 2, that within the period of 1 year from the date of approval by the city council, the site's front and rear parking lot shall be repaired, resealed, and restriped as necessary to the satisfaction of the inspection department. Parking spaces shall be double striped at 10 feet wide by 20 feet in length. Also within the same time frame, the site's trash dumpsters shall be enclosed. And that the 3 walls of the trash dumpster areas shall be constructed out of building materials that shall complement that of the building. The enclosure gate shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. Number 3, that the only conforming signage is approved with this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 4, that no LED light band or exposed neon shall be permitted on the site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. Number 5, unless approved by the proper local authority, any type of exterior advertising, such as promotional flags, streamers, or sponsored vehicles designed to attract the attention of passing motorists, shall be prohibited. Number 6, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for. And number 7, pursuant to section 1910, ordinance number 543, zoning ordinance of the city of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by the city council. And unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Okay, do we have support for that motion?
Support.
I'll go with Mr. DeLong first on that one. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Ventura, supported by Mr. Long. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Chairman Magno also votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, and the motion passes. Go on the city council and approving recommendation. Good luck with your project, Mr. Quattro.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for attending this evening.
All right, bye now.
Good night. Mr. Secretary, we have one item left on our agenda.
Yes, we do. The approval of the minutes of the 1,165th public hearing and regular meeting held by this commission on February 23rd, 2021.
And all members were present for that meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Made by Mr. Caremagno. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Long. If there's no objection from our commissioners, we will ask that the secretary please show 7 to approve our minutes. I don't see any objection from any of our commissioners, so we'll mark that as approved, and that takes us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the Planning Commission this evening? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I move we adjourn.
And that's supported by?
Board.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn by Mrs. Smiley, supported by Mr. Bonjero. Again, if there's no objections, I'll ask that the secretary show 7 on the motion to adjourn. And that will end our meeting this evening. We want to thank Livonia Television staff for bringing this meeting to the community. And with no further business to conduct, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:23 p.m. and wish everyone in the city a good night.
Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.